Good evening, everyone. Public libraries, a waste of space. Public libraries to close. Fight to keep the libraries open. Inquiry into the closure of public libraries. Funding for libraries cut. These have been the headlines in the news over the past few years, and especially recently as councils have been asked to cut their budget and to reduce costs. The public library is increasingly under threat of closure. And as a Western society, we use economics as our way to determine the value of everything. And so the library is no longer judged on what it has to offer, but on how much it costs and on how little it returns. But I believe we need to remind ourselves that providing something for the public good is never going to be profitable, but it is still as essential as ever. So for me, the public library offers us three things in a very unique way. First of all, it feeds our imagination. Secondly, it gives us access to information. And finally, it helps us to maintain our sense of identity. So first of all, feeding our imagination. Albert Einstein once said, "If you want your children to be brilliant, read them fairy tales. If you want them to be geniuses, read them more fairy tales." For me, the library offers us a world of imagination, and within the library, using your imagination is actively encouraged. It's like a door on the Advent calendar. When you open the door, inside there's another little world in that little space. Or it's like Alice falling down the rabbit hole, or climbing Enid Blyton's faraway tree. It takes us to a place where things are not as we expect them to be, where our views are challenged and our idea of what is possible is stretched. Einstein realised the value of the imagination and the role of stories in developing our imagination. And so this helps us to wonder, to dream, and to explore what might happen if, or I wonder what's under here, or what's around this corner. I have lived 1,000 lives within the pages of a book, said Robert Cormier. And I can identify with that, for as a child, I lived in the imaginary world of the famous Five and the Secret Seven. As a teenager, I travelled to the world of the 19th century with George Eliot, Jane Austen and Thomas Hardy. And in the past few years, I have solved a crime with the Swedish detective Wallander. I have been a time traveller's wife through the imagination of Audrey Newficker. And I have flown kites in Afghanistan through the wonderfully evocative story by Khaled Hosseini. And only the public library gives us the opportunity to enter so many imaginary worlds freely and to offer others the ability to do the same. Secondly, it gives us access to information. An anonymous sage has said, "Knowledge at the library is free, just bring your own containers." And Thomas Jefferson was heard to say, "Information is the currency of democracy." And so as well as giving us a place for our imagination to run free, the library also gives us access to information on a plethora of subjects. In our current technological age, of course, we have much more information and it's much more accessible to us. With the increase in the availability of the home computer and the emergence of the internet and the web, some people suggest that Google will actually replace the library. But if we think about it, when we go onto the internet, it is our way of accessing the information, but most of that information is really stored on paper somewhere else in the world. And so despite all our technological advances, research has shown that long-term storage of information is still best done on paper. And not every country in the world has the technology that we do in the West, nor the easy access to it. And this is still true in parts of our own society here as well. And so while this is still the case, the public library provides this access to information both in the virtual realm of the internet and also the traditional form of the book. And the great entrepreneur and businessman Andrew Carnegie, he recognised this role of the public library. He says there is not such a cradle of democracy upon the earth as the free public library, this republic of letters where neither rank, office nor wealth receives the slightest consideration. And so near the end of his life, he built libraries all over Scotland with his wealth. And in West Lothian we have our own Carnegie Library in West Calder. And finally, the library gives us the opportunity to maintain our identity. Maybe like me, you have enjoyed the TV series Who Do You Think You Are, where well-known people are given the opportunity to take the journey to find out about their ancestors. And invariably they find themselves in a library, looking and searching through the records that have been kept for hundreds of years. And it's not just bare facts that they find through these official documents, but also an understanding of what life was like in very different times. Our memory gives us a sense of who we are, and a loss of memory, just like someone who has Alzheimer's disease, takes away our identity and brings a loss of relationships. So the library is where our memory is kept, whether it's a large national reference library or a small local history library. Our identity as an individual, a community, and also as a nation is based there. Sometimes when we're facing problems and we need help, we think no one has ever faced this problem before. We need to find something new in order to help us through. But if we look hard enough, and if we ask someone who is wise enough, we will realise that very little is actually new. And someone has said, books are the human race recounting its memorable experiences, confronting its problems, searching for solutions. And so the library, as the only free public indoor space that any community has, holds all these things and more for us. Surely that is worth preserving, so that when all our technology has passed, we will have our own local treasure house waiting for us. Thank you.